Alright boys, look, okay, we back locked in. Now I know y'all familiar with the saying, what is it? Live safe, stay dangerous. Like something about staying dangerous but remaining safe, something like that, right? Which side of that coin do y'all fall on? Psych! That's a trick question, it's the same coin, it's the same coin. It's the same coin, right? Alright, let's get into it, man.
Through expressing it, to tolerate not knowing what you want to say until you've said it. The counterfeit gives—
Oh shit, my bad, I was muted. Again, I keep telling you, like, I'm gonna get it right though, I'm gonna get it right, we live. So I can't go back to a post-produced version. I'm just glad I caught it early this time, right? The fact that I was muted. Yeah, as I said, man, it's the part 2 of staying dangerous. And yeah, let's stay dangerous, boys, and see how to go about that, right?
Gives you the product without the developmental process. And because we're so focused on products, grades, credentials, completed tasks, we often don't realize what we're missing. The student using AI gets the same grades. The person watching summaries accumulates information as quickly. The efficiency appears real. But years later, the difference becomes apparent. The student who struggled through writing has developed capacity for clear thought, for constructing arguments, for finding language for complex ideas. The person who engaged with difficult texts has built psychological musculature for sustained thought.
And I just want to shout out to my, give a special shout out to my boy Kai Sinat, right? For that kind of development. I mean, I don't know how many of y'all tapped into the streamer world, right? Streamerverse. I have a separate channel, like where we break all that down. So Kai Sinat, you know what I'm saying, the biggest black streamer / creator. You know what I'm saying, he went away from the whole, because we could see the limitation in his vocabulary, right? We all spotted it, but he received the love that he deserved anyway. You know what I'm saying, people still fucked with him and all that, but I feel like he dove deep into himself and realized that he doesn't fuck with the version of him that's like not developing his vocabulary. So he decided, yo, let me step aside from this whole streaming thing 24/7 and go produce, you know what I'm saying, go develop, a better vocabulary by starting to read. He's reading, not even on stream, but on like his videos, his vlogs and shit like that. And that's the biggest W that I've seen in 2025. And especially from a young guy, I'm saying you don't find enough of that from like the young crowd, right?
For sitting with confusion until it resolves into understanding.
Oh my God,
they haven't just accumulated more knowledge, they've become different kinds of people with capacities that can't be counterfeited.
Seriously?
This is what the therapist means by enriched soil that only comes from time under tension. You can't efficiently produce enriched soil. You can't shortcut the process of difficulty creating psychological capacity. The very things that make the counterfeit feel efficient, avoiding confusion, bypassing frustration, eliminating wasted time, are eliminating the conditions necessary for genuine development.
Talk about it.
There's a deeper irony. Trying to be efficient with our time, we often waste it. Hours scrolling, gaming, consuming frictionless content. These feel less wasteful than struggling with difficulty because they're pleasant, but they're completely disposable. Experiences that leave no residue, no growth. You could remove them and be essentially unchanged. Compare this to time spent genuinely grappling with something difficult. It's inefficient, often frustrating, sometimes doesn't produce obvious results, but it's the opposite of wasted. Every hour spent in genuine struggle builds psychological capacity, develops understanding, creates growth that compounds over time. This time feels more costly because it requires real effort, but it's far more valuable because it's changing who you are. The efficiency framework fails because psychological development isn't linear or measurable. Like we measure efficiency, you can't quantify how much you've deepened, can't measure the expansion of your capacity for complex thought or emotional wisdom.
The question that's hitting me now is that the people that go with the struggle of for example being married. Let's zoom into the marriage example, right? So you're married, you know what I'm saying, everything is roses and honey at the beginning, we got the honeymoon phase, and then we go years, and then maybe by the end of the 12th year, maybe 8th year, maybe 6th year, nigga, maybe 4th year, facts. of being married. You know what I'm saying? You had enough of this motherfucker. You like, nah, dog, I can't even do this, right? Considering the dangerous mindset we have, you know what? I'm gonna stay in this relationship. I'm gonna see shit to its end. Of which, that kind of mindset, if we're considering not considering the end result as our point of gratification, right? We trying to fall in love with the process and shit like that, right? If we consider that now, should the reality of an end in mind be in our mind? Like, you know what I'm saying? That's a great question. Should I have an end in mind? And if I do, what does it look like? Because I mean, what am I looking at here, right? I'm looking at falling in love with the process, the dealing with the struggle. You know what I'm saying? That's where my goal is. Not in, you know, if whether or not we get married for 100+ years or it ends next week, whatever. This is where I'm supposed to derive my gratification, right? The process of everything. Now, what about the guys who just, you know, get married and get divorced, get married again, get divorced, get married again, get the nigga for the 5th time, get married and then get divorced still? It's like, dog, what are we learning at that point? Right? Because all that paints for me is a guy who's just married to the idea of being married, right? Instead of just like working with that to help you become a better person. But like, what are we becoming better for in that context? I am here, I am the best I am because of the fact that I'm married. And you know, the gratification I'm deriving out of this is my choosing this person daily. So my purpose of this is just like continuing to choose this person daily and living with that struggle, that you know, lesson learning and shit. And again, it's not the fact that it's about to be hell the whole way. It's just that there's hell involved with this process, and we gotta be in love even with the hellish aspects of it, right? So clearly these guys are just like divorce and remarry, divorce and remarry, divorce. Like, there's a certain weakness that we gotta get away from there. If that's not the POV that's supposed to be painted in your mind, it's just supposed to then paint the whole idea of irrelevance of marriage. It's irrelevant for a mind like that. The marriage thing is supposed to be forever. In that context, right? I don't know. I might be misconstruing shit, right? Put it in the comments if you think I am.
These developments happen slowly, often invisibly, and only become apparent in retrospect when you realize you're capable of things you couldn't have done before.
Really?
Not because you learned new skills,
Because of
but
what?
because you've become a different person.
Okay.
The social crucible. Much of the most significant psychological development happens not in isolation, but in relationship. And struggle, particularly shared struggle, creates a unique kind of connection that can't be simulated.
Sure.
When you're the new person in the boxing gym, terrible at throwing punches while everyone else seems competent, you're in a fundamentally vulnerable position.
Absolutely.
You need help, you have to ask questions, you're visibly struggling in front of strangers.
Absolutely.
This vulnerability creates possibility for genuine connection.
And I'm concluding now. I'm going ahead to conclude that vulnerability is actually a step in the right direction, right?
In a way that
Because once we're sensitized to that vulnerability, we can do something about the vulnerability. That should be the main goal of the thing. Doing something about it. You know, giving yourself that kind of purpose.
curated social media interaction never can. Maybe someone takes time to show you proper form. Maybe you bond with another beginner over shared incompetence. Maybe you slowly earn respect through persistence rather than skill. These interactions are different from the connection we cultivate online because they're based on your actual self. Awkward, struggling, imperfect, rather than your curated self.
Nice.
This is what the therapist gestures toward with brotherhood and camaraderie. These words point to something real,
And
the
community.
bond that forms when you're in difficulty together, when you see each other's vulnerability and choose support rather than judgment.
That's it.
This is different from connection based on shared interests or mutual validation. It's deeper, more resilient, forged through witnessing each other in struggle and choosing solidarity. The counterfeit version, likes, comments, followers, carefully curated presence, bypasses this entirely. You can accumulate thousands of connections without ever being vulnerable, without being seen in struggle, without developing relationships based on shared difficulty. The connections feel real because they provide similar dopamine hits, validation, belonging, the sense of being appreciated, but they're based on presentation rather than presence. This matters because relationships involving genuine vulnerability are what most contribute to psychological development. It's in relationships where you can be imperfect, where you can struggle and still be accepted, that you develop authentic self-knowledge.
Shit, nah, you cooking. I'm not gonna lie, he got me there. It's just crazy because, you know what I'm saying, I grew up in a kind of environment where, like, yo, vulnerability is not looked at as like a strength, bro. You know? I feel like this kind of reality is really you know, garnered in like environments where vulnerability is not looked at as like this disgusting weakness, bruh. Because, like, yeah, our family lineage, man, we're not about that kind of, and you know what I'm saying? That is a principle that you can live by. I'm not trying to see any form of vulnerability, any form of weakness, blah blah blah. But is that the right kind of principle to develop with yourself? You hear me? Because that kind of, you know, that kind of principle develops an environment where you know, y'all give birth to somebody who will want to toy around, or not toy around, but like, you know, dance with their vulnerability, accept that shit. Obviously, you know what I'm saying, you're gonna make it tough for that child or that, you know, person coming up out of that environment. You're gonna make it tough for them to accept their vulnerability, you know, telling yourself, no, we don't accept that in this family. And there's a whole lot of, you know, brothers and sisters out there, man, y'all grew up this way. I grew up that way. You feel me? And I feel like that's why I got the degenerate mindset that I have towards this kind of thing. But as of late, I feel like from 5 years ago, I'm 29 now. So since 24, like, I've kind of gotten the idea that, yo, literally being vulnerable is its own strength, bro, in many ways. You understand what I'm saying? And, you know, you sharing that kind of vulnerability with like the rest of the community that you're tapped into, that you resonate with, you know, it's sort of like that vulnerability sort of becomes a shared strength. I'm not gonna lie, like I've been understood that, like I got that. That's why, like, yeah, that's touching me right there.
Knowledge and resilience. It's in relationships where you're pushed beyond your comfort zone, where others expect more of you than you expect of yourself, that you discover capacities you didn't know you had. When you're always presenting your best self, always controlling how others see you, always able to edit and curate, you're protected from rejection, but also from growth. You never risk being seen in ways that feel uncomfortable. You never depend on others when genuinely struggling. You never navigate the vulnerability of not knowing what you're doing in front of those who do. The result is extensive social networks without intimacy, hundreds of contacts without community, constant interaction without meaningful connection. You're socially engaged, but psychologically isolated, surrounded by people who know your presentation, but have never seen your person. There's another dimension. We learn immensely through modeling, through watching others further.
Look, and I'm not gonna lie, bro. I feel like, you know, me going live regularly, and this has been like a new concept, well, a new reality that I'm trying from myself, you know what I'm saying? Going constantly live. I have my reasons why, my primary reasons, but I feel like, yeah, we might just be able to, you know, knock that bird with this one stone, because there is another bird that we're knocking out with the same stone of constantly being live, but that provides like a opportunity for me to make my mistakes on live, right? And then garnering a community where it's like, yo, they want to be on the same kind of energy, but probably nervous, probably, you know, they constantly, you know, feel this need of having everything perfect and shit like that, you know what I'm saying? So I want to give myself an opportunity to fuck up. But yo, there's this one fuck up I just did right now. Nigga, 15 minutes strong, muted on the mic. I'm like, what? Yo, I was like, yo, no, I'm not gonna lie. The thought of me like keeping it up, nah, keep that live up, bro. No, okay, first of all, nobody's gonna view it, but the people that bump across it, they'd be like, yo, dog, you slipped up here, like da-da-da, but you still keeping the live up, fuck. But you still keeping that live going. Am I still right? Man, I just clicked some wrong button by mistake. I was hoping some setup. Guess we still live. You see what I'm saying? These kind of fuck ups. Alright, brother. Keep cooking. Keep going. Keep going.
Further along and trying to emulate them. The boxing gym example is revealing. You're not just learning through instruction, you're learning by watching the person who makes the bag sound like a war zone, by seeing what competence looks like, by having a concrete model to aspire toward. This requires being around people better than you, who can do things you can't yet do, who model what's possible. It requires tolerating the discomfort of being the least skilled person in the room, of visible comparison with those more capable. But it's through this discomfort that you actually learn. Not just technical skill, but the whole gestalt.
Oh my god, I'm grateful for videos like this. I don't know about y'all, I'm grateful for shit. There's a whole lot of aspects of myself where I thought, dude, I'm super weak here, I don't even belong here. It's like, no, I'm starting to see that was the freaking main reason why you were supposed to be there. It's because of the weakness. Don't run away because of that, right? Yes.
The mindset, the approach, the embodiment of mastery. When we choose solitary counterfeits, video games instead of team sports, AI instead of mentorship, online tutorials instead of in-person learning, we lose access to this dimension of growth. We can learn information in isolation, but we can't learn how to be a certain kind of person. We can't absorb tacit knowledge, embodied wisdom, the way of approaching challenges that only comes from proximity to someone who's integrated those qualities.
Right.
What grows in the garden? So what actually grows when we provide the conditions, the enriched soil that only comes from time under tension? What are we cultivating when we choose struggle over convenience?
Good question.
Psychological range. When you've only operated within your comfort zone, avoided anything that makes you feel uncertain or inadequate, your range is narrow. You need very specific conditions to feel okay, tasks you know you can do, people who validate you, situations where you feel competent and in control. Deviating creates disproportionate distress because you haven't developed capacity to be yourself across varied circumstances. When you've repeatedly put yourself in uncomfortable situations and stayed long enough to find footing, your range expands. You learn you can be yourself even when uncertain, even when inadequate, even when circumstances don't match preference.
Man, that's a bully ass fucking, like, what is that, a guard, security guard, a police officer? The fuck, how you bully that man for his freaking apple? I don't know.
You're less dependent on external conditions being just right because you've developed
shit. Yeah, there we go. There we go. I feel like that there goes my za, you know what I'm saying? The reason for my za addiction, bruh. I need the condition to be just right. Just right. Not, I'm not touching that shit. Fuck. I need to get that sound effect, like that's, you know, part of my shit. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Being attached to the result. Again, bro, like, yes, I, like, as I said, I'm guilty of this myself. I'm saying, having to make sure that the result is perfect, you know, before I can, like, even be motivated to begin the freaking thing.
Internal stability that persists across situations. Psychological integration. We all have aspects we've rejected, capabilities we haven't developed because they don't fit our self-concept, possibilities we haven't explored because they feel too risky. Choosing comfort keeps us partial, operating from only the parts we've deemed acceptable. Struggle forces integration by putting us in situations where usual approaches don't work, where we have to access aspects we typically avoid. The person who thinks of themselves as purely intellectual might discover through physical challenge that they have untapped bodily intelligence. The person avoiding vulnerability might discover through relationship difficulty that they're capable of more emotional depth than realized. These discoveries require revising your understanding of who you are, but they make you more whole, more able to access your full range of capacities rather than operating from a narrow, defended version of yourself.
You know, let me just devil's advocate this point right quick, bruh. You know, in a world where, like, even, you know, the hard work of getting to somewhere or whatever, it's not incentivized, you know what I'm saying? Okay, let's put together another real quick example, real life example. The dating market, right? The dating game and shit like that. You know, the whole thing of like men approaching women, shit like that. We see the whole, you know, energy where it's like men are discouraged, men are not doing that kind of thing. It's not worth it anymore. I'm afraid of being rejected. Things like this, right? And it's like, yo, what's the point of like continuing to do that? Okay, maybe yes, maybe by the fourth, maybe after the fourth rejection, you know, your fifth attempt, you might get, you know, the green light, right? Yeah, the fifth girl that you approach, boys. I'm talking to y'all boys now. You know what I'm saying? Y'all are my responsibility, you know what I'm saying? To a certain extent. I'm sorry. To a certain extent though, you feel me? But look, yeah, maybe let's say by the fifth person you might get the green lights, and not just the green light. It's the kind of green light that, yeah, it's worth your lifetime investment. That's the wifey right there, so to speak, right? I feel like, yo, like the discouragement that happens, yo, after the third rejection, fourth rejection, you're like, bro, what the fuck is the point? Because now look at what your brain is telling you. It's telling you, bro, like nothing will ever come right. You know what I'm saying? And I do get that. That person is not wrong telling himself that or assuming that, especially when they're still young. When they're young as fuck, okay, they are yet to realize that that's not, you know, that's not the end of things. Especially if they still got a little bit of that courage to go for that fifth person who's then gonna accept them, you know, as per our hypothetical. You know what I'm saying? So first of all, I don't think they're wrong in telling themselves, yo, things might be this way. But that's because they told themselves that. They have to, you know, live with the reality of the false thing that they told themselves. It is what it is. You know what I'm saying? Because what the fuck? They did not get rejected a whole 4 times before. It's only natural for that mind to fall into that. And I feel like that's when, you know, that person's environment being strong enough or wise enough to understand the value in rejection, you know, that's where that environment of his is supposed to impart that wisdom that, no, dog, it's okay. You can get rejected the next 25 times. Keep going. And I feel like it's less of that kind of energy that like kind of gives you that support, even though you're experiencing the worst of the experience. It's important to like be around those, but like, how do you fish them out? How do you sniff them out? I'll tell you how you sniff them out. You know what I'm saying? You do your homework in terms of, yes, maybe looking at a person that you might emulate, you might look up to, but don't tap into what they've already accumulated. Don't tap into the result of their lives trying to get there. But, you know, open up that can of worms as to like, how many times were you rejected before you got this thing solidified? Right? How many times did you get rejected? What was going through your mind when you got rejected? Double down on that information so that you can be able to like also consider your own limitations and know how to work with those, right? Okay, I'll be honest, I forgot the point I was trying to make, but hope there's some people that understand that, right?
Practical wisdom. You can read about resilience, but you only develop it by actually bouncing back from difficulty.
That's right.
You can study decision making, but you only develop judgment by making decisions with incomplete information and living with consequences.
Right.
You can learn about relationship dynamics, but you only develop relational wisdom through navigating actual relationships with all their mess and complexity. This wisdom is qualitatively different from information. It's
Seriously?
embodied, tacit, contextual. It emerges from pattern recognition across multiple experiences, from having been in enough situations to recognize subtle cues and variations. You can't shortcut it because it requires the accumulation of lived experience. When we choose counterfeits, we accumulate information without wisdom. We know about things without knowing how to navigate them. We have theoretical understanding without practical competence. And because we're so immersed in information, we often don't realize we're missing wisdom until we're in a situation requiring it and discover we have no idea what to actually do. Meaning, the experiences that feel most meaningful are almost always ones that involved struggle, that required something of us, that we had to work for. The relationships that matter most are ones where we've been vulnerable, where we've weathered difficulty together. The accomplishments we're most proud of are ones we weren't sure we could achieve. This isn't coincidental. Meaning emerges.
Nah, man, that shit feels... God, that shit is corny. Let me bring to you another example, guys. And I know y'all familiar with the whole families that just like put you down, families that literally have never spotted your potential, or at least that's what it looked like when you was growing. I don't give a fuck, but whatever it is, it's like the trauma of it all was real. Are you telling me I'm supposed to like keep on going back to that relationship, telling myself that yo, this is best for me? Bro, that shit was literally horror, dog. And there's a reason why like I'm ghosting people like my family and shit, like, you know what I'm saying? There's that whole reality. It's not even a train of thought. It's reality. People grow up ghosting their parents because of their past, you know what I'm saying? Past experiences with people, like your own family. That's a fact. I know y'all see, you know what I'm saying, the narratives that are like online, even, you know, with titles and thumbnails that explain the fact that, you know, Gen Z kids even are coming out about them ghosting their own families because, you know, you have narcissistic parents or whatever family members that just scar your experiences with your family. Literally, the point that he just made right now made me reflect on that reality, my own life. Facts. I don't know. Maybe this shit. Maybe that thought in my head will get like easier to accept. Like, but that's one aspect of my life that I'm like, bro. Even if this shit could burn to the fucking ground, bro, I don't give a fuck. You know what I'm saying? Alright, Queen.
From the intersection of challenge and value, from engaging with something that matters despite it being difficult, from persisting with something important despite uncertainty about success.
And just by the way, I've justified the fact that even though that is a reality that like I'm developing in my own psyche, it's like, fuck it, I'd die this way. You know what I'm saying? Like, look, man, I'm good at accepting the consequence of the decisions that I made. I came up doing that shit. You know what I'm saying? Yes, I did experience, as a result, some psychologically damaging experiences, like, you know what I'm saying? But I feel like, yo, even me getting through those kind of psychological damages, bro, I'm still here. I like, you know what I'm saying? I'm decent enough to just, like, in a bare minimum way, get along with society to a point where once I've gotten what I wanted, like, I don't give a fuck about the rest of society. I've gotten what I want. You know what I'm saying? I'm to a point where I've justified that completely. Shit, I might be destroyed. It might be late for me, but hey.
When we remove the challenge, when
whatever,
we make
man.
everything easy and certain and comfortable, we also drain the meaning. The counterfeit provides satisfaction without meaning. It feels good in the moment, but contributes nothing to a sense of purpose or significance. You can be perpetually satisfied, entertained, validated, comfortable, while experiencing profound lack of meaning. And meaning is far more important to human flourishing than satisfaction.
Create your
People
own
can
meaning,
endure
man.
enormous hardship if it feels meaningful, while comfortable lives devoid of meaning lead to despair. The practice. So if the counterfeit is everywhere, if our entire environment is designed to bypass struggle, if choosing comfort is locally rational at every decision point, what do we actually do? Awareness first. Start by recognizing that every time you reach for the convenient option, you're making a trade. You're trading immediate comfort for potential growth, present ease for future capacity.
That's a fact.
Sometimes that's the right trade. Not everything needs to be a growth opportunity, but making the trade consciously is different from making it habitually. This means developing intentionality about difficulty. Instead of avoiding all discomfort or seeking arbitrary challenge, identify areas where genuine struggle might be valuable and choose to engage despite the discomfort. Maybe it's learning a skill requiring persistent practice, joining a community where you'll initially be incompetent, taking on a project beyond your current capabilities, having a difficult conversation you've been avoiding. The key is that the struggle must be genuine, actually challenging, actually uncomfortable, actually uncertain in outcome. Simulated difficulty doesn't work. Video games where you adjust difficulty don't build the same capacity as joining a sports team where you're genuinely the worst player. Tolerance for the messy middle. Develop tolerance for the period between starting something and getting competent at it. The phase where you're visibly bad, where you don't know what you're doing, where you're confused.
Talk about it. Hey, let me out myself right quick. You know what I'm saying? I feel like I've done a pretty good job at staying repetitive or consistent in me, you know, making my uploads with no views. Facts. Man, I still have my views popping up in front of me. just because I subscribe to my own channels using my other accounts, you know what I'm saying? I'm like, the first 5 views is always me. You know what I'm saying? That's always my shit. Yes, I was like, okay, let me give the social experiment some time to develop, right? So I just skip over my videos about it. And lo and behold, nigga, I'd hit like 2 months, no views on the video. Fuck. I ain't stopped though. I ain't stopped that shit. Right? You know how discouraging it is, bro? You go like 4 months and there's like 3 views on the thing. God. I'm not gonna lie, I'm happy at the fact that, you know, I think the propaganda of just like me doing my homework, you know, researching, you know, people telling you, no, yeah, you're gonna have these no view phases in your diet, keep going, keep keep, again, that's that environment that is allowing me to fall in love with the process versus the end result, right? And it's in these little real life examples, and it may be a reality in your life too. You know what I'm saying? It's in these things where you actually kind of see you're taking a step in the right direction. Because I'm not gonna lie, that shit is mortifying. No views on my shit. Hey man, let's
frustrated and tempted to quit. This is where the most significant growth happens.
Yo,
this requires disconnecting self-worth from current competence, recognizing that being bad at something new doesn't mean anything about your worth. It means you're a beginner, a temporary state, not an identity. It requires developing comfort with being seen in this state, with others witnessing your incompetence without it feeling existential. It also requires patience with non-linear progress. Growth through struggle doesn't happen in clean increments. You have rapid improvement and periods where you seem stuck. You have breakthroughs and setbacks. The process is messy, and one reason we're drawn to counterfeits is they promise clean, linear progress. Real growth is rarely so neat. Supportive environments.
Fuck, you're right!
Create environments and relationships that support struggle. It's much easier to tolerate difficulty when you're in a context where struggle is normalized rather than pathologized, where being a beginner is expected rather than shameful, where the focus is on genuine growth rather than performed competence. Seek communities built around practice rather than performance. Martial arts gyms rather than Instagram fitness culture. Writing groups where everyone shares drafts in progress rather than only finished pieces. Learning contexts where questions are welcomed rather than seen as inadequacy. Find relationships where you can be vulnerable about struggles rather than always presenting your capable self. Also reduce exposure to environments that make struggle feel shameful or unnecessary.
That was my whole thing about, like, you know, coming up even like in families. That's your initial like environment, bro. That's literally the initial environment where like you're gonna have a picture of how to move forward with this energy that you're presented with, right? As a kid, you know what I mean? And the difference is having a family that like everybody's struggling. You know what I'm saying? Everybody's struggling, but somehow I'm the fault in you know what I'm saying? It's my fault that everybody's going through and I'm only saying that because that's how you conceptualize it in your young mind, being a young person coming up within the environment, which is your family, that constantly just, you know, put some shit as your fault, of which is like, bro, we're all in this mess together. So the difference is a family that could like encourage you, even, you know, at the face of, you know, we've been a struggling family name, our lineage has always been fucked up, but there's always that like that wisdom with it. Whoever it comes from, whatever family comes from, you need that kind of wisdom where it's like, nah, dog, he still got it. You still can be something amazing. I don't give a fuck if 20 generations before us we've just been in the same cycle. Look, you have the potential. You can do this. Let's go. You know, it's very important, bro. And I feel like that's what it means for your environment to. But if it remains in that toxic black hole of you know, just discouragement and just putting you down and all, like, at that point, man, it's supposed to be a different conversation, right?
If you're constantly seeing curated presentations of effortless success,
Yeah.
if you're immersed in content making everything look easy, if you're surrounded by messages that you should already know everything, it becomes much harder to tolerate your own genuine struggle. Discernment about difficulty. Distinguish between necessary struggle and unnecessary suffering.
Yeah.
Not all difficulty is valuable. Some challenges are genuinely pointless or harmful. The practice isn't seeking all difficulty indiscriminately,
Okay.
but discerning which struggles might be generative.
Pick your battle. Pick your fucking battles. You should be straight.
Generally, generative struggle involves challenge that's difficult but not impossible, that
Yeah.
stretches capacity without overwhelming it. It involves difficulty in service of something you genuinely value
Right.
rather than arbitrary hardship.
Nice.
It involves social contexts that are challenging but fundamentally supportive rather than abusive.
That's what we
This
want.
discernment develops through experience. You learn through trial which challenges are valuable and which are destructive, which discomforts lead to growth and which to depletion. Pay
Yeah.
attention to the aftermath of difficulty. Did it leave you depleted or developed? Did it
Yeah.
clarify or confuse your sense of self? Did it expand or contract your capacities? The courage to suck. Perhaps what we're really talking about is the courage to suck at something, to be visibly inadequate.
Not suck on something, ladies and gentlemen. Suck at something. My fault,
To be
my
the
bad,
person
my
who
bad.
doesn't know what they're doing while others do. This requires particular courage because it goes against everything our culture tells us
Seriously?
about self-presentation. We live in an age of performance where everyone curates their image, shows only competence, hides struggles. Social media has amplified this absurdly. We see everyone's highlight reel and compare it to our behind-the-scenes footage.
Right.
The message is clear. Being bad at something is shameful. Struggling is failing. Not knowing is inadequate.
Yeah.
But if you're not willing to suck at something, you can't actually learn it. If you're not willing to be visibly incompetent,
What
you
happens?
can't develop competence.
Beautiful.
If you're not willing to struggle and potentially fail,
What
you
happens?
can't access the growth that comes from genuine challenge. The courage to suck is actually the courage to grow. This courage is harder to muster than it seems because being bad at something in front of others activates deep social fears. We're wired to care about status in groups, to be sensitive to judgment and rejection, being the worst player, the confused student, the person asking basic questions while everyone else understands. These situations trigger real discomfort about social standing and belonging. The
Right.
counterfeit offers escape from this discomfort. You never have to be visibly inadequate if you only do things you're already good at, if you let AI handle what you can't do, if you avoid situations where you might struggle in front of others.
Yep.
But something remarkable happens when
What
you
happens?
actually summon the courage to suck.
What
First,
happens?
you often discover that your catastrophic predictions about judgment don't materialize. Most people in
Yeah, there ain't shit. Those thoughts ain't shit. That's like, you know, I get it now. Nobody gives a fuck.
contexts of genuine learning are focused on their own development, not on judging yours. The harsh judgment you fear is often more about your internalized critic than
Yes.
others' actual responses. Second,
Crazy.
you discover that you can survive being inadequate. Your sense of self doesn't collapse when others see you struggle.
Yep.
Your worth doesn't depend on appearing competent at all times.
And what does that do? Like, okay, this is a genuine question. How do you influence other people if you adopt that kind of mindset? You influence them and encourage them to like also not be afraid of their vulnerable parts, right? Of the vulnerable parts that they like and how beneficial those parts can be to them. Because there is value in that, in vulnerability. You know what I'm saying? Hey man, I'm like, this video is cooking, bro, and I'm glad to be touching on these kind of. You feel what I'm saying? You do actually like that kind of energy is contagious, bro. If you asking me, because I would look at somebody. Let's say it's somebody that just like it's like some sort of scene, like maybe you know the work environment that I work at, right? And they're new and they're just struggling. They kind of, you know what I'm saying? It's like I kind of root for that person. That's why I'm able to like maybe, you know, when it's my turn to train somebody who's like at this, you know, at the same level of my level of the position that I occupy at my work spot. You know what I'm saying? It's like I kind of root for you because I know like where I was at. You get what I'm saying? There's nothing that pisses me off like people who are so narcissistic in their ways that they might look down on you for, you know, being the learner, the beginner. That shit is so fucking ass. That shit is ass. And those people are whatever they are. Fuck it. Fuck them. You know what I'm saying? But being open to doing that, it kind of like it takes me back to the moments when I was there. And you know what I'm saying? Oh, look at that. That's like, you know what I'm saying? You gonna get it though. You know what I'm saying? Let's go for it. Let's go for it. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm in support of like people who find themselves in that kind of situation. You know what I mean? But who are willing to work. They still got their wits about them. They still optimistic. You're like, damn. They're still enthusiastic about the whole experience. You're like, man, yeah, it's good.
The discomfort is real but survivable, and surviving it teaches you about your resilience and your actual versus feared fragility. Third, and perhaps most transformatively, you often find that visible struggle actually creates connection rather than destroying it. When you're genuinely struggling and others see it and offer help or support or simply acknowledgement, a different kind of relationship becomes possible. You're no longer relating as curated selves, but as actual people with limitations who sometimes need help. This vulnerability creates possibility for real intimacy and genuine community. The courage to suck is ultimately the courage to be a beginner, to return to not knowing, to need to learn rather than already knowing. This is increasingly countercultural as we move into an age where AI gives us answers to anything, where information is instantly accessible, where we never have to sit with not knowing. But being a beginner is actually a profound psychological position. It requires humility, recognizing you don't know everything, that you have room to
Well, what the fuck is that? Is that snakeskin?
grow. It requires openness, being willing to be changed by what you encounter rather than just assimilating it into your existing framework. It requires trust, believing that the process of not knowing can lead somewhere valuable, that struggle can be generative. Reclaiming reality. At the deepest level, this is about reclaiming reality, choosing genuine experience over simulation, actual growth over the appearance of growth, real connection over performed connection. It's recognizing that the counterfeits, however convincing, however satisfying in the moment, cannot provide what they promise because the value isn't in the product but in the process. Isn't in the outcome but in the transformation. The therapist asks what we're leaving behind when we choose convenience. We're leaving behind the possibility of becoming substantive rather than just appearing successful, of developing depth rather than accumulating information, of building real capability rather than presenting competence. We're leaving behind the opportunity to know ourselves through genuine encounter with difficulty, to discover our capacities through testing them, to become more whole through integrating aspects we can only access through challenge. We're also leaving behind the possibility of genuine meaning. The life of convenience, of constant comfort, of optimized pleasure is not a meaningful life. It might be pleasant, might be successful by conventional metrics, might accumulate impressive credentials, but meaning requires that we engage with what matters despite difficulty, that we persist with what's important despite uncertainty, that we become more than we currently are through the struggle to grow. This isn't a call to reject all convenience or valorize suffering for its own sake. It's a call to discernment about what we're optimizing for. If we optimize only for comfort, efficiency, immediate satisfaction, we'll build lives that are comfortable but hollow, efficient but meaningless, satisfied but not fulfilled. If we can learn to value and choose struggle when it's in service of genuine growth, if we can develop tolerance for the discomfort of being a beginner, if we can find the courage to suck at something long enough to develop real competence, we might build lives that have substance and depth and meaning. The garden is there, waiting. The enriched soil only comes from time under tension, from struggle and difficulty, and the courage to keep going when you don't know if you'll succeed. But what grows in that soil, the depth, the wisdom, the integrated wholeness, the earned meaning, is irreplaceable. It can't be counterfeited because it can only emerge from the genuine process of growth through difficulty. The choice is available in every moment, the counterfeit or the real, the convenient or the challenging, the simulated or the genuine.
The fast food or the cooked. know what I'm saying? The pursuit of boys, again, the pursuit of that lady, or the shortcut of going to get a whole bunch of money, just come pay for the whole experience. And then you'll get the shit that way, you know what I'm saying? These are real questions, boys.
Each individual choice seems small, seems trivial, but they aggregate into a life, into the person you're becoming or failing to become.
Right.
The question isn't whether you'll struggle. Struggle is inevitable.
It is.
The question is whether you'll choose to engage with struggle when engagement would be generative, whether you'll stay with difficulty long enough for it to work on you, whether you'll accept the invitation to grow that every genuine challenge represents.
Yeah.
The therapist sees this tendency in his clients, this low tolerance for struggle, this quick move to the counterfeit, but he also sees what they're losing, what we're all losing when we organize our lives around avoiding difficulty. Pay attention to what you're trading when you choose convenience. Notice what's growing or failing to grow in your internal garden. Ask yourself whether the life you're building through accumulated choices is the life you actually want, whether you're becoming who you could become or just managing who you currently are.
Yeah, now these are great questions, boys. You know what I'm saying? These are great questions. Now, you know, go tap in with Queen. Check, you know what I'm saying? It's Queen right here. Right quick. Quick little plug. I love this video, man. Go give this shit a like, subscribe to the homie, you know, and I'm look, don't look at this subscribe button, unsubscribed, and think I'm not into this shit. I'm just reacting on a premium account so that we don't get plagued by ads. You know what I mean? There's a specific account where I consume these things and I want my subscriptions to remain there. So don't look at this like, you know what I'm saying? Yeah, and that channel is my psychology reaction channel. This channel is not that. That's why this shit is unsubscribed. But I really do want you boys, go subscribe here, man. Like, this is valuable shit, bro. The dangerous mindset, bro. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, and I guess, yo, stay dangerous, boys. We need that. We need that. Stay dangerous, and not in the ignorant way of staying dangerous, right? If you made it this far on this video, you already know what we're talking about. Stay dangerous, right? Yeah, and yeah, yo, I fucked with this, man. But you know, with all that being said, y'all know we need that final word from our sponsors, right? Let's go ahead and dive in.
That shit fuck, y'all ain't drunk on shit. Either the zone, run up a leg. Whichever you think counts, make it legit. Already know I'm designer, my type of cloth ain't a missus. I just mean like I'm an honor, give it a time and a ticket. I'd rather you keep it 1,000. I smack all that cap off your lip. Look at the dumb, make a script with the dollar. So after we fuck out the dick, catch your face.